Ladies and gentlemen, what is up? Welcome to another episode of 8 Bits, where we promise not to fart on your balls. Ever. Never, ever will we ever do it. I'm djWHEAT, joined, as always, by itmeJP. It has been a pretty freaking awesome week in gaming, all leading up to yesterday when games were just, pouring out of the sky, it seemed like, this week. So I am excited to be here for yet another week to discuss. Of course, next week we are both gone and out of town, so we get to cram a lot into tonight, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks. But JP, how the hell's it going?
It's going good, man. Like you said, it's been a fun week so far. March is just it's kicking ass left and right in terms of the games coming out. I feel bad because April is only we're already halfway through March, and April is just a dead zone as far as I know for games. So I guess it's good.
Too.
Yeah, I'm already halfway through Dark Souls 2, so
nice.
I guess for PC, I probably will play it again on the PC.
Yeah,
but I think so. But yeah, we still got Infamous. What else is there? There's something else. Oh, Diablo 2 expansion that comes out at the end of the month. And I think that's it. I think there's that new Yoshi's Island game, but I think that's terrible from what I've read. So, but yeah, that just means more Titanfall time as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
That's kind of my backup game for all of this, I think.
Yeah. You mean just like CTF?
Yeah. It's the game that I think when all is said and done, that's the game I'll be playing after I beat Dark Souls, after I get tired of Heroes of the Storm. That'll be the game I go back to, because I don't have enough time for it right now.
We're already jumping ahead of ourselves, I suppose. But yeah, so maybe we should just jump right into now playing. I don't think anything outside of gaming has been really that exciting for me personally this week, so I'm ready to just jump.
Detective finale was good. Did you start watching that yet?
The which one?
The True Detective show?
No, but I heard it's out. And I'm sorry. I think I had 2 streams open of my stream, which was causing some crazy lag problems. Hopefully it's fixed. But no, I haven't watched it yet. It's on my list. Like, we got them all in the DVR, ready to go. JP. Everyone says it's fantastic, that they're ready for like True Nurse and True Garbage Man and all of these different iterations that they could do. I don't know where that show's going, but yeah,
I'm excited to see where it goes. If the first season if they can keep up with that pace, then who knows? The show was fantastic.
I know that the family went and saw the latest animated movie. I don't know about the dog, Sherman. I don't know what his name. I don't know. This one didn't. Usually, like, a little kid inside of me would be like, "You want to see this? Sweet, it'll be awesome." And in this one, I was just like, "This. I gotta make sure my kid's not." This did not interest me at all, at all. So I was so happy that they went without me. Anyway, all right. Let's talk about what we've been playing. Where do you want to start?
I think we start with the games that we finished up last week.
Okay.
So for you, it was South Park, and for me, it was Castlevania.
Okay. So real quickly, I did finish it.
Honestly.
What's that?
It seems like I've played both those games like a year ago at this point.
I know. It's so true. And I mean, I'm not going to say much because my opinion didn't really change that much from the end. Like, again, if I could go back and I could do it all over again, I'd love it if maybe I could like change classes if I wanted to. The game, I would certainly try to increase in difficulty a little bit. It got interesting that near the end, they set you up with a lot of ways that you can avoid battles. You get the XP, but you like take out the enemy before you go into the turn-based combat. I just kind of found it interesting. I got to say, JP, I'd love to hear what you think about it. I'm not really spoilers, but I do feel like the last 15% of the game feels incredibly rushed. Like, maybe even with a longer date, like they were like, okay, we actually want to do about 1 million more things, but we've got to wrap it up. It just kind of all seemed like, at the end, it just was like, done.
Okay, I'm remembering the end sequence of that games. You do kind of jump from like something that's not so final to something that is super final for sure.
And
But
it's not like
they might have had some of those segments for DLC. I don't know if any DLC has been announced, but I would assume that that's a game where DLC might be something they go for.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd agree with you on that. And it's not to say that this like would detract me from suggesting this game to someone else at all. It just to me, I got that feeling that if the South Park guys could have done another 20 hours, they would have. And obviously, it there's just so much in that game to appreciate. The fact that every single line is voiced through the whole thing is just amazing in and of itself. So I was really
Yeah.
happy with it. I'm still okay with the amount that I paid for it. Probably won't ever play it again, but I would definitely buy a second one. And I think
Yeah.
that's the important part of it.
That's probably the one thing is still with me is if you're interested in that, play it on the PC, or if you're interested in playing on the PC, then wait till it goes on sale because it'll
Yeah.
eventually go on
Yeah.
sale. They're not going to keep that at $60. There's no way that they're going to keep a digital game that's no more than 10 to 12 hours with no replayability on it at that price. I definitely see it going on sale a month, maybe two from now at most, or sorry, at the least.
All right.
But yeah, it's fantastic. It was a great game.
Word.
Still stand by the statement that Angry Joe said, where it's the best TV licensed game and or TV or movie licensed game in quite some time. Definitely since GoldenEye. They just nailed it through and through.
I would definitely agree on that. And with that point, tell me about Stealthivania 2.
Yeah, so I finished that game last week. I was still pretty upset about the stealth, and I'm trying to think. After I killed Death, there was like maybe 30 minutes worth of gameplay. Like I
Oh,
literally,
you
I sat
recorded
in
one.
after we recorded 8 bits. I streamed it after 8 bits later that night, or it might have been Saturday morning, and I was like, all right, let's buckle in for the last 2 or 3 hours, and it was literally, all right, go to this area, fight the last boss, which the last 15 minutes of that game were fucking stupid as all hell, story wise and boss wise. I was just not a big fan. The last boss was kind of stupid, but I enjoy the combat enough to where it was decent. Also, if you go into that final boss without cure items, without whatever I forgot what they were in that game, you can't go back unless you restart that entire checkpoint, and it's a really fucking annoying boss fight without having those restores. I can't even imagine doing it on the hard difficulty without any of them. I played on normal, but all in all, it was interesting, I guess. I don't know if that is a oh my god, go out and buy it now game. I think
Sounds
that's
like
more
a 6 to me.
it's definitely in that range. I typically don't give scores or anything, but wait till it's at least $10. Unless you're just like the most die-hard fan of Castlevania games, and then I guess you can go ahead and pick it up. But yeah, the last boss was just a fucking joke, just a letdown, just not cool at all.
That's too bad.
But I enjoyed the rest of the game for sure.
All right, let's talk about our other games then. Let's talk about one that came out on Tuesday, Titanfall, the 50 gigabyte wonder, and we certainly have chatted about this game quite a bit through beta into now release. And I have to say, JP, I played this game in beta, and I was like, I wouldn't even say I was on the fence. I would say that for the most part, I was that guy that knew I was going to buy it and play it, but wasn't really like. I mean, I think my hype might have gone from like it's like right here to down here a little bit. And once I found CTF, that was it. Like I had a lot of fun with the game. I still have my own issues with it, but I found something in the game that I think is incredibly fun and I have had a blast with. So I was really surprised that from the beta to where I was kind of lukewarm about it, suddenly, getting the retail, seeing everything that's available, I got really turned around about this game. I mean, what were your sort of initial thoughts going from beta to retail?
I think the beta For me, what it showed was the movement in that game. That's really what I took away from it. Attrition and hardpoint, and like out of attrition, hardpoint, and last time standing, I thought last time standing was the best mode in the beta, only because it wasn't attrition and hardpoint, things that I've played for what, the past 10 years, it
Right.
seems. Right. I mean, it's the same mode over and over and over. It has its fun, but you can only play that so many times. Also, the two maps, I honestly think the two maps they put into the beta were the two weakest maps in the game. Um, I really enjoy it. And also the fact that there's 15 maps in that game is really remarkable.
Hmm.
They have a huge selection, and they're all quite varying. And you can tell that almost every single map too has different parkour elements in it that they really spent a lot of time on. Like I think that's where the bulk of the game development was in designing those maps, because there's multiple paths that you can take, especially as a CTF runner. On the majority of them, there's tons and tons of places, but I think CTF is still the best mode. I'm right there with you, and I think that it kind of harkens back to the Quake CTF days for both of us, and that's probably why we enjoy it so much.
I
I,
agree. It has that feeling that it just is. It's got a really nice feeling of speed. You can, customize with burn cards to make CTF even more crazy and fun, which is like probably one of my favorite parts about it. If I would make CTF perfect, and I'm going to sound like a broken record to a lot of people, but if I made CTF perfect, I would make it so there was only one or two Titans out on the field for every, per team, so that
right.
those became really, really important in the aspect of offense and defense. Because what I just feel like what can happen sometimes is that games can snowball if people stagger their Titans and then they don't, like one team has five Titans on defense. It's suddenly just like it can become really, really hard to get the game back overall. So, I still think the CTF is so much fun. And you're right. Like, I'm kind of tired of playing the same modes over and over. Like, I feel like even attrition, JP, it feels like it lasts 3 minutes, and then I have to spend 5 minutes loading, and then the wait screens where people are doing their
Yep.
loadouts. So CTF, I feel like I get my most bang for my buck as well in terms of time played. But if you're good, you'll shine in that mode too, which I kind of like. But as you mentioned, the parkour is really good. Customization is still really good in this game. The progression is actually fantastic, and although I'm not even to my first medal, I'm like I think almost level 40, and that's been probably 65% of it from CTF. So
When you prestige, does it set you back with all of your upgrades and everything? Do you start back level one basically? Is it like Call of Duty, or do you keep all of that?
yeah, I believe so. I believe that it resets. I could be wrong, but I believe you just get a
Oh,
medal next to your name. What?
I probably won't be resetting that. I think I'm just gonna sit at 50. Like I don't care for that prestige thing. I'd rather just have everything unlocked. You know?
Yeah. What do you think? So I found it interesting. I feel like we have to talk about it. A lot of people on my Twitter, when I would say something positive about this game, were just shitting on me, and I was like, "Hey, man, like why, what's up?" And he's like, "I can't even play this game. It's bullshit." And so apparently on Xbox Live, there was just a lot of issues with people being able to play. And although there were some initial PC issues, they quickly sorted themselves out. And there's only been a couple times I've had a drop game. We played those few games and we didn't have any problems at all. So I mean, I wasn't aware of this, but considering that there's no single player at all, I guess I would have been pretty pissed off too. I'm just happy I made the right choice.
Yeah, I don't know what the issues are on the Xbox One. I think it's also pretty easy. We talked about this earlier on the week on the co-op, or earlier in the week on the co-optional podcast. Like, it's such an easy game to hate because it does come from the same school of thought as Call of Duty.
Sure.
I mean, it's the fucking guys who made Call of Duty, right? So of course it has the same tendencies, the same quirks that series has, but I'd definitely say at least give it a try. Like a lot of people hate on the 6v6 aspect of it and think that there's really not all that much action, but once you start getting Titans in there that are AI controlled and all of the other stuff, like maps can get pretty hectic from what I've found. Um,
Yeah, that JP. That's why I would love to see. And unfortunately, the 6v6 is like we are victims of the console, because that's
yeah.
what the Xbox probably supports, and makes it the best experience. As a result, we get this port. We're stuck with that. As a PC user, again, like I'd love to see them fix Titans, so like a X number out on the field, and then increase that number of players. You're right. There's some maps that would be awesome with like 2, maybe even 4 more players on each team. But I mean, that's something that you've got to live with on PC. And I guess like it's been pretty obvious, but I would not suggest to play this game on Xbox One. I have not played it on Xbox One, played it on PC, but that experience is fine. It's what I expected. And if you've got a PC, you might as well join the club. I don't know.
Yeah, again, like I think PC is definitely the best. One of the, I guess, getting down into the nitty gritty of it. I know you had an issue with kicks in the game. You
Right.
still this same issue?
Yeah, I mean, at first it's just kind of silly. I ended up spamming my melee key to mouse 4. And seriously, if I see anyone and they're close to me, I just start spamming mouse 4. And 95% of the times you'll get the kill. The thing that I really don't like about it, and I use it only because it's OP, but the range on it is really fucking ridiculous. Like it's literally just this huge bubble around you, and all sorts of weird prediction and collision shit happens a lot of times that just makes it probably my least favorite melee I've ever seen. And I just don't think it should be a one-hit kill. I think an execute from behind where you snap the neck is absolutely where it should be, but a kick should only do damage, and all this, the game is focused on gunplay and running and stuff. But to make someone who has like speed and stim and can just like kick and kick and kick, almost invincible is kind of ridiculous. And I'm not sure how it is, but there's got to be some level of invincibility that you gain when you're kicking as well, for like
Yeah,
a few frames.
I don't know if there's any invincibility frames. I definitely noticed in the beta of the game that the kick had more of a homing element to it, to where I think they actually nerfed it since beta, believe it or not. Because now I feel like it's a lot less, or sorry, it's more loose in how it operates. Where in the beta it was like if you were near them and within the range, your character became a fucking homing
Right,
missile,
and they
go around windows and shit, like get the kill in. Like, it was pretty absurd. That's been toned down somewhat. I haven't really noticed too many issues with it. Like if I'm in the range of someone that's going to be kicking me at that point, well, I either missed my shots or they got the surprise on me and I should be dead anyways.
Well,
I don't
now
really
that I
like.
kick, I don't have much problem with it either. I still think it's bullshit, and they should like lower the range of it. I'll still use it, but I think like it became less of a problem when I knew what people were trying to do to me, and then I could just be like, "Well, fuck you," and kick you first.
I think that like what Call of Duty did for a lot of those, probably almost. I mean, I'm trying to think back to like. I think Call of Duty was the first game that had like a one button full on "I'm going to knife you" animation, whereas like Battlefield 2, I think you pulled out your knife. I don't know if there was a full on knife animation in Battlefield 2. I feel
I
like that
don't
was something
know.
that Call of Duty originated from, and that's really what it is. It's something for console. I think it's a console driven
Oh
ability.
yeah, yeah, and it's a shitty habit that games are gonna
Yeah,
like never break, because
yeah,
it's
especially console games.
yeah, and in this world where you're like you've got guns that won't damage people, the fact that a kick is killing you, or a gun that takes 5 shots to kill you with, but then I can come in and I can just, burn a card and just wreck everyone by just being so fast.
Yeah,
So someone mentioned the shotgun. The shotgun is really good at the
I
range
think it's
that it can
good. Yeah.
work, especially if you get the amp shotguns. I think part of that is just like if it's hard for shotgunners to hit fast moving targets. So it's a great defensive weapon.
Right.
I think.
And I think that like I had a lot of gripes. I got into it with TB about the smart pistol. He's in favor of it, where I just think it's pretty lame. But I think the smart pistol, much in line with the knifing, is like it's something that's built in for people that don't play Call of Duty type shooters to be able to be competitive on the consoles. On PC, that thing is fucking broken. I'm sorry. Like, I just hover over someone for 3 seconds and, like, yeah, you can use the argument that, well, they should be good enough to shoot you. But when you're fucking jumping around a million miles a minute, and I've said this 1,000 times, like, it's really, really hard to do it most of the time. There's only been a handful of moments where someone's gotten the better shot, and most of the time, it's probably because they're hip firing with what is it, the carbine, and just getting a
Right.
shot. Like I think that the aiming skill in that game, unless you're using a sniper rifle, is not really a big. It's not like aiming is not that hard in that game. And then to put in something that's automatically aiming for you to where you just click once, I think that's kind of ridiculous. But
Yeah.
I've already talked about it so much, I don't want to turn this into a big salt fest.
That's fine. I guess I would say like I think some of the hardest shots that are made in the game are probably some of the guns on the Titans, like the charge cannon and shit like that, where you actually like you just basically have to be ready to fire once it's charged up. And but as far as a smart pistol is concerned. The one thing as someone who was super salty about it from the beginning, and yeah, I'm not like the biggest fan, but the one thing about it is that like anytime you break sight, it breaks their lock. So,
Right.
movement is king in that game, and you always have to remember that. But
Totally.
at the end of the day, the weapon's still it is kind of ridiculous. It's another one of these console ports. Like honestly, I would made a completely different game if I was developing Titanfall for the
Oh,
PC.
it would have been a completely different game. But yeah, this game was designed to be the thing for the Xbox One. I mean, that's why I think that they probably got money for it. I mean, they obviously got money for it for exclusivity on the Xbox One. Microsoft
Right.
saw that and they saw that it could be the next Call of Duty, and it had Vince and his team behind it. Of course, the creators of Call of Duty. So that's who it was made for. And then they're just like, oh yeah, we'll put it on PC too. That sounds like a good idea. We could loop it in with Windows, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I don't want to complain about it too much
No, that's
because
fine.
it's too much.
Was there anything else that you didn't particularly like? Or I actually have started to I guess like the burn cards more, just because if you know that everyone's on the same playing field as they can play one anytime, it does suck when you're like, oh god, that one asshole burned that card at the perfect time and it worked. But the Titan early call down cards are pretty redonkulous. But they can offer a level of strategy, at least even in a pub game, where you can be like, well, we're losing, guys, but I'm going to pull my Titan here right on the second half and let's go.
Right.
What are your thoughts on the burn cards? Like, do you like them overall, and do you think that there are any that are crazy, or do you think that since they're one life experiences, they sort of balance themselves out?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. They are the one life experiences, and I think that to even bring like the competitive aspect of that game in, burn cards are never going to be something if it ever gets to that stage that'll be in there because it's just too much of an element of randomness and what you bring into a match. Or if you're stacking like 3 permanent invisible cards or 3 of any of the super. I mean, there's one card that basically turns your mini map into I can see everyone in the game while you're alive. Or there's one that I used on that one map the other day where I went like 22-0 because anytime they would come near me, I would hear this beeping noise, and it was very very loud. So I think they just bring some interesting dynamics into the game, and for people that want that game to be competitive, it's just not. It's just a pub game. It's a game that you play with friends and you have fun with. There's a lot of things that need to happen for that to even be considered like a competitive game, and it's a long, long time for any of that to actually occur. I think.
Yeah. And someone asked, do you think burn cards are going to become subject to microtransactions? And that, if they do, then that's my instant, like, JP, like, man the lifeboat. Let's get the fuck off this thing right now, because that's where it just will no longer be fun. And right now, I think that it has a very nice level of fun that I'm quite enjoying. CTF only. and that CTF is actually worth $60 to me.
And they also said the other day that private lobbies are coming into the game so that you can, I guess, set up 6v6 matches. So that's pretty cool.
It's
I
about
think
time.
that's what private lobbies mean. I'm not exactly sure. That could mean a lot of different things.
It might
Soon
just
it's-
mean that like people can't join me if they're on my list.
yeah,
I don't know.
private lobbies to me means that you can set up a 6v6 game. I hope that's what it is, but who knows? Who knows? I'm interested to see what happens with that game moving forward, map wise, and what else they add to it.
I will definitely be playing it a little bit more, CTF. And I'm the one thing that scares me is that there has been a few times where I've like tried to search for CTF specifically, and it's taken me a long time to get a match. I hope that like the amount of, and I have no idea how many people are playing it on PC right now, but I hope that it stays decent enough that it doesn't become impossible to find a game and you just can't play anymore. So.
Yeah, play CTF if you're a PC player. It's the best game type, 100%. I know a lot of people that the first day that it was out, when I was playing Monday, even the day before it was out, were not playing CTF. And as soon as they started playing, a bunch of people in the chat were like, "Man, this game type is actually a lot better than what I thought." So play CTF. It's good.
You
And so
want
it's
to talk about Dark Souls?
Yeah, it's an iffy game to talk about in great depth because I think a lot of that game is just about exploring and discovery. So I don't want to talk too much in the way of boss fights or areas like that. Just that there are boss fights. There are fucking really hard boss fights. I had one that I think I worked on the other day for at least 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
And it wasn't that it was like a cheap boss fight. It was just that there were moments. It's one of those things where you almost have to play perfect against what's going on. And the mechanics in that game, which are stuff that I can talk about because it's far from spoiling. I really, really enjoy what they've done with that game, where you can be human and you have full HP, right? So in Demon Souls, when you die, you'd go immediately to half HP, right? When you die in Dark Souls 2, it takes 10% of your life away until 50%, and then it stops. So like each death, you get a little bit weaker, I guess is the best way to put it forward. And going into boss fights with 60 or 70% HP compared to full is really the difference between being one shot and then being able to also take a hit. So like even getting practice where you really have to practice on a lot of these bosses to learn movements and patterns and whatnot is pretty difficult because if you get hit once, you're just dead. And there's not much you can do about that. And a lot of people don't enjoy that. So part of me wonders if it's too hard for certain people. But I thought that with the original Dark Souls, and that game's done nothing but created this. I wouldn't even call it underground anymore. It's just created this scene for these games, this rabid fan base that is both good and bad. But I'm not going to get into the elements of that. But overall, it's just what a remarkable game. They can keep making these games on the PS3 for the end of time, and I'll keep playing it. But I can't even imagine what a next gen one of these is going to look like. The art style and the design of the game is just awesome. It's just brilliant. I love almost everything they put in the game. I don't have actually any complaints about it thus far, and I've probably played 25 hours worth or 30 hours worth.
I mean, your biggest complaint is probably that it's hard, which is a good thing, right? I mean, that's how it's supposed to be.
Complaint. I'm trying to think back to like if anything, the complaint is that it loads really slow on the PS3. But it's a PS3, so I just have to accept that because of the hardware limits. Those holding on PC, I don't think we're going to see any of those load time issues. But in terms of like different styles of gameplay, I know someone that's been playing the entire game as a mage and having as much success with it as I am. I've been playing a pretty strength build. I'm doing well. I know someone that's playing like a cleric build that's doing very well. I know someone that's playing a very dex style build that's using 2 weapons, which the system was refined in for Dark Souls 2, where R1 and L1 both have the normal attacks for those weapons, and then L2 and R2 are the heavy attacks for those weapons. And you can like string together combos and whatnot. Um, it's just awesome stuff. All of the boss fights are a little bit different. Like, did you played through Dark Souls? Did you play through the DLC for it?
No.
Yeah. Okay, so there was a boss fight in the DLC um, that I feel like a lot of this game's boss fights are derived from, where it's more of a humanoid type person that is around your same size that is just faster or I
Wait,
don't know.
no, no, no. I did play that. Yeah. He
Okay, you
like
did?
zips around and shit, and it's kind of
Yeah,
like a shadowy humanoid
yes.
picture. Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's
yeah.
boss fights that are very similar to that. Out of the, I think, 7 or 8 bosses I've killed, I would say at least 4 or 5 of them are pretty much that. Um, but that's not bad because that was my favorite boss fight in Dark Souls. So I would expect that maybe later in the game you get some different elements, and you kind of also have to play the game not sticking to one single thing. Like in Dark Souls, you could stack poise and armor, and pretty much just like hammer through almost every single boss by just spamming attack and healing when you wanted to because you don't get interrupted. It's not really the case in Dark Souls 2. You have to really vary up your gameplay per encounter and per mob, which I enjoy a lot. You can't just do the same thing over and over again. So
I really,
I'm really interested in seeing the art styles though in the later levels.
I'm really interested. In just going back a little bit in what you said in regards to the whole concept of sort of customization of your character, because it sounds like no one has made a bad combination. Um, I mean that was one thing. Like you could certainly do that in some of the original games. Do you feel like uh, I mean is it pretty limitless in terms of how you want to build your character and then the loot that you get to be able to support that character? Because that was going to be my next question. Like how does that work out for you?
Yeah, I think a lot of the gear in that game. For example, I got a weapon that requires 26 dex. So I bumped my dex up to 26, and it ended up that I fucking hated that weapon. Um, but I still do okay. I'm using a very high strength weapon now. And there's also respecking in this game, which is new. So, like,
Oh.
if you don't like your build, there are ways within the game to change it. Um, and I think I've gotten like 3 or 4 of those, and I'm not. I'm maybe like a third of the way through the game. I think a half was being or halfway through was being a little bit generous, because I've been told there's 40 bosses in this game, and I've killed 7, and I've played for about 20 hours. So
That's insane, dude.
I don't know if they're all if the majority of those are hidden and optional or what. I do know that I was talking with Brad, or maybe I've talked with a bunch of Dark Souls players, and like their way through the game was completely different from mine. In that when they finished this zone, they went to this zone, but when I finished that zone, I went to another zone and had a completely different time with it. I actually think I went to a much higher level zone that I was supposed to go to, but the game just allowed it to happen because that's how the game's designed. That's how the levels are designed. I didn't even know about this other place until they mentioned it to me because I was stuck on a boss for like 2.5 hours. It was the one that took like 4 hours to kill. And then I went back and I was a little over leveled, but there were 3 or 4 boss fights that I ended up finding. And I ended up one shotting, I think, 3 out of 4 of those because I was a little bit higher level. But like I think you just showed a screenshot right now that I have no idea where that's at, and I have no idea who that boss is, or if that's just a regular mob. So that's really what's got me playing that game, almost to the point where like Heroes came out yesterday, and I thought about just streaming Dark Souls. That's how much fun I'm having with this game.
That's awesome.
I love the sense of exploration, and there's no other game out there that like even as there's no other single player game I think in the history of single player games where you defeat something and you fucking get that like sense of adrenaline for doing so. There's a lot of multiplayer games I think where that's prevalent, but nothing like that can be matched, and it's only a Dark Souls driven experience that can do something like that. And I absolutely love that game. If you are a fan of challenging games and RPGs, action RPGs, or just wanting to try something new, check out Dark Souls on the PC and wait for Dark Souls 2 on the PC. Unless you want to play it right now, play it on the PS3 or the 360. I think they're both fine, from what I can tell.
So, in closing, I think it's safe to say that you feel like this game has kind of lived up to the hype. You're really happy with it. It has been toppling other games on Twitch as one of the most watched new games come out, and I guarantee you it'll stay up there a while, dude. But overall, I mean, your recommendation is certainly glowing, but you're happy with the version.
Oh yeah, again, I don't know what I would want differently from that game. Um, it's still got those like fuck you Dark Souls moments. Like I haven't found any mimics yet, but for example, there was two chests next to each other. I opened up one chest, which typically the style of chest that it was has traps and also has better loot in it. So I opened that up and I didn't find a trap, and I was like, "Great, I got that item. It's awesome. Let's go get this other dinky one. It's probably like a way to heal yourself or something like that." Uh, so I open it up and immediately traps start going off and I die. And I'm like 20 minutes into this level where I got to go back to the bonfire. And I go back to it and I'm like, all right, I'm ready. The last one was an arrow trap. I've got my shield up. I'm just going to stand here and take this. And it's a poison trap. And I'm poisoned and I start to die very, very, very quickly. And I'm just sitting there like spamming my fucking regen HP waiting, or regen items waiting for it to go down. And so it's cool that they switch it up like that, where it's not just one thing. So you really
Right.
have to be ready for anything.
Awesome. Well, I
Uh,
mean, I can't wait to play it. I'm just gonna hold my horses and be glad that there's gonna be a few extra games to guide me along the way until I can. But I look forward to it a lot. I have been naughty and I've watched a few streams, but
it's hard not to.
it's hard not to. But I feel like if I just like watch some random streams for 10 minutes, I'm usually pretty good. You know, like I just say getting like an idea of the UI, different shit. You know, kind of.
Completely redone, by the way.
Yeah.
The UI is fantastic in this game. Instead of like spamming X on souls that you want to use, you can actually just use three. Like there's a little slider that comes up and you can just go over to three. Um, it seems like they took almost everything that was a complaint about Dark Souls, which is a fantastic game to begin with, and changed it to where it's better. And the mechanics are all. It's a mix of Demon Souls and Dark Souls combined. I think is the best way to portray that game, mechanics wise. It's really well done.
Awesome. All right. Let's talk about the other. Is there any other games before we talk about Heroes from yesterday? Anything else?
Um, I don't think so.
I mean,
I'm almost done with Baldur's Gate. I'm like in the final hours of Baldur's Gate. I'm very excited to be done with that game. Only because I didn't intend for it to be such a fucking long game.
all right, let's talk about Heroes of the Storm then, and what was just like leading up to an inevitable release yesterday. The forums went up, and the rumor, mill was churning out stuff, and well, eventually around 5 or 6 o'clock last night, the or the switch was flipped, and Heroes of the Storm came out. Sounds like there's about 1,000 people, which is pretty crazy. You think about it, who are currently in the technical alpha, but we got a chance to play, give or take, all through the intro, and then, total, even with the AI stuff, maybe like 10, 12 games, whatever. But I'm definitely interested to talk about this game because I had not even touched it. I didn't even know that much about it until I had it yesterday, and we got a chance to play. So, do you want to you want to start? I mean, I've kind of heard some of your opinions before, but a lot has changed since even BlizzCon, and now that you've had a chance to play it, like, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I played 10, 15 game, probably like 10 or 12 games, I think is a better estimate at BlizzCon. Strictly playing Stitches, which is basically Pudge, the original Pudge, from, I think it was Warcraft 3 or something like that. I still call him Pudge in the game. I think it's just what's going to happen. It's the same
Let's
thing.
just get it. In fact, let's just get it out here, JP, because last night, if you tuned into the stream, I said Pudge. I said Omni Knight. I'm pretty sure I like called out at least two or three others by their other equipment. Oh, Tinker. Yeah, so it might come out. Just be warned. I don't
Yeah,
even know the full names for everyone. So
yeah, it's just gonna happen. I'm not calling it Illidan Terrorblade, so that's good, but they are pretty similar in design because obviously Dota Heroes were based off of Warcraft 3, so they're going to be similar, right? But regardless, that it doesn't even matter. The game's pretty like a lot of people look at it and they're just like, well, this is just another MOBA or another League clone or another Dota clone. But I think it's really, it's quite different from almost every other MOBA right now on in the MOBA world, where this game really promotes or tries to promote a very objective driven, more so than any other MOBA I've ever played, as well as a cooperative thing. Because like, if you're not focusing on these objectives per map, you can get destroyed very, 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 very quickly. They provide such a uh, backdrop for like the strength of your team that if you don't go out and kill a creep, for example, which when you kill a creep spawn, creeps then spawn for you and they go towards your enemy's base. These are on a timer throughout the map. Or if you don't do the objective, then if your opponents do the objective, you're going to be that much further behind because most of the time they either provide some sort of creep pushing down your lane, some sort of artillery pushing down your towers, or some sort of nerf to your creep waves where they get one shot. And there's four different type of maps. I don't remember what the fourth objective map was, but overall, I think it's a great pub game. It's a great game to play with friends. People are probably already trying to put the esports aspect into it. I don't know. Maybe.
yeah,
Like I
I don't. It's like
oh,
so early. I mean, like right now, the most important part of that, right? If you look at what breakdown, like what makes a good game like that, it's just got to be fun. So I think that for me so far, it's achieved that, and I think what you say is true. Like if you're gonna go into this game, you really have to put aside what you know about Dota, what you know about Dota 2, what you know about League of Legends, what you know about Strife, because our expectations of all these games make an expectation for this game. But I've found that that's hurt me more in playing. Guess what? Like, for I'm sitting here playing this hero, and I'm like, God, this like I don't understand. Like, why is this hero in lane? And then I'm like, you know what? This hero isn't supposed to be in lane. He's just supposed to be running around the map, causing havoc, like jumping on people. And it like there's no set lanes, but what is set is the objectives. And people are figuring out, well, if we five man up to this tower and take that, then we can take these objectives, and then fuck pushing lanes. Like we'll push the lanes when it gets to, and that's something I think a lot of games have been trying to achieve in the mobile world. I think Strife is a good example. They have like an objective in the center of the map, but at the end of the day, it's really just still about the lanes. And Heroes does a good job of kind of like changing that. The what I also like about the objectives, JP, is that it's kind of unique and interesting that each map is just different.
I
Like
and
yeah.
I also love that you can't queue for a specific map. You're just thrown into you're going to play one of these four maps and it's pretty random. I think. I don't know if I've not seen a place to change what map you're queuing for. And I
I
think
don't
that's awesome. I love that.
maybe in like compete like the competitive thing, you might be
Or
able to
ranked or something. Yeah, I don't know.
choose
But
it.
but then that what always happens is the community finds the quote unquote best map, and then that becomes I think having that many different types of maps makes the variance of gameplay so much more fun, where you're not just playing the same league map, but at the same time, does that take away from like the quote unquote skill of the game? I
No.
don't I don't think so.
I don't think so. I mean, for one thing, again, like if you peel away the esports aspect of it, like is it going to be more fun to play three or four different game types? Like it certainly could be. So it just works best for what they're offering, right? Like I'm not suggesting like, well, League will never be it'll always be the same map if they never have three additional maps. Like what are you gonna do? Well, you do have the other modes, but if you went into like a tri lane and tri lanes were different constantly, that's not necessarily it's not necessary for those games because the way that Blizzard is focusing on the objectives. If that
Right.
that was a little convoluted, but I think that is kind of important. I didn't realize. I mean, I realized that the objectives were a big part of the game, but once you actually get in and you play and see how it works within the construct of everything you already know about a MOBA, it's definitely different. I mean, the first time I was collecting skulls, I was like, "What the fuck is this? Like, why am
Yeah.
I not out there doing what I need to do?" But then you're like, "Wait a second." Like, fuck that. I need to collect skull. Take some teamwork. You got to, that's kind of cool aspect to it. Someone in there is like kind of like they were talking about arena, and you can tell that there's a lot of inspiration from the early days of what WoW tried to do with their battlegrounds and how
Right.
there were some objectives there, but it didn't quite translate out. I feel like some of those things have spilled over a little bit into Heroes of the Storm, and they took sort of that approach with objectives, and then turned it into their version of a MOBA.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm watching Sean play right now, and I'm just thinking like, how big do you think this game? Now that you've played it, now that you also are that you also understand it and take into effect that it's a Blizzard game with like every Blizzard IP in it. Like, how big do you think this game's going to be?
I mean, I'm certainly not going to make any kind of crazy, statements like this game is going to be bigger than X or bigger than Y. But I think what you
Right.
said is probably important in that it's funny when I see people already talking about like, oh, well, I want to play all the StarCraft guys, or I want to, I like the fact that it reaches out and touches all of those various communities. It means that anyone who comes into this, even if they're only familiar with WoW, they have something they can relate to, artwork, character, something. There has to be a draw to that. Like Blizzard has been successful based off their IPs. They just put them all into one game. I can't help but think that there's got to be some success there. I have no fucking clue how many people will play this game, but I'll tell you what, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people did. I just don't know what that number is. I'm not going to
Yeah.
say I don't even know if it could
I
get.
don't even know if you can tie a number to it. Like, who
Yeah.
knows? But I think what you can do is like kind of what you did. Like, look at all their other IPs. Think about how big those audiences are, and now they're releasing a free-to-play game with all of those IPs combined. I think that's like I think they're looking at that. And I think I'm looking at that, and it's like, yeah, that's a recipe for success. Like, I think that's gonna be it's gonna be huge. Much like how Hearthstone, where I looked at Hearthstone, I was like, this is gonna be a fucking joke. Like, how a digital card game is good. It's not gonna be that big, and it's fucking huge now. Like, it's one of the biggest games on Twitch. And I think it's one of the biggest PC games right now as well, especially with it going this week, actually
Right.
going live.
Yeah.
Like, it's out of beta now. It's the game's done, quote unquote, done. And that's great. I think Blizzard is right now compared to any other developer is in such an interesting spot with all of these games going on. Like Diablo 3 at the end of the month, Hearthstone just went live. This alpha started. Like, what a great time for to be a Blizzard fanboy. There's just too many great games for them coming out.
They are kind of hitting their stride. It seems like once again, and I think one of the things that's most curious to me about this game is, like you said, just how far they can take it. Do they plan on continuously releasing maps? I mean, for those that don't know, you can buy heroes right now, just like Hearthstone. And a lot of people are like, wow, that's really shitty of them to be spending, to make it. But I'll tell you what, in my opinion, that's smart as fuck. Because you look at Hearthstone, and I've never heard of anyone being like, yo, I had problems buying all these packs and this and that. They were very upfront about you're spending real money. You're going to get it all refunded back to you. I think that it's smart to have that stuff like working in play, and also to figure out and get a gauge. Like if a lot of people spend money on Hearthstone as they did during the beta, then that probably gives Blizzard a lot of very valuable data on what they can and cannot do, especially looking into the future with a game. If they see, we're already seeing like a sizable amount of money based off of this. If we have this population, like, yes, we're going to commit ourselves to be releasing new maps every month, new characters which of course to them means money, but the support of the game beyond release is obviously important as you see Valve Valve, Riot, S2, High Res, like they're all so very involved in like the ongoing development of those games.
So, what do you think about the price points for everything? Do you think it's too high? Right now,
Um,
for example, most of the characters in the game are around $10. Some are around 750. I think the lowest they go is around 5. Everything can be purchased with in-game gold, but the gold is earned rather slowly from what I've seen. I'm only at 4,200. Most of them are 5,500. Some of them are 10K.
Okay, so I'm just really quickly to give an idea because obviously Dota is the real winner in all of this, right? Because they everything you get for free. But I'm looking up some Riot information right now, just by comparison,
It's
right?
twenty
Because I
dollars
think
for
it's
most.
I
$20
think
for most legendary skins. And
so. As yeah, let's look at this real quick here, just so people can understand the comparison. Because I actually don't know. And so for 650. Let's just say for 1380 is $10 worth. So you need to buy $10 worth of Riot points in order to purchase, I think, their most expensive champ at any time. And I'll just go over because I think the most expensive champ at any time is like 900 some points. But let's see. Yeah, it looks like that's the case. So you're talking about 750 for a champion, and then of course like there's sales for champs and for heroes on both sides. So it seems to be pretty comparable to what already exists out there. But I didn't really look at the skins and the mounts and stuff to know what those prices were either.
mounts are $20. Skins are around 10.
Damn.
Yeah. The unicorn mount is $20. I know that because Total Biscuit bought it earlier, and he bought a skin for his barbarian, and it was $10. So barbarian in itself with the unicorn mount is $40 with the skin.
Um, and then on the flip side, I bought 120 packs in Hearthstone. So technically I've spent, I could probably already unlock all the characters if I brought over the money that I'd put in Hearthstone into that. That all that means is that I think people are willing to spend it.
Yeah. Yeah, and they are going to do the rotations for everything, so I think that's good. Um, I think that's it. If they didn't have that, I'd be a little bit more tilted. I really think that I don't know if the prices are final. I don't know if they said anything about that or if they're just testing them right now. In fact, I don't know how that would even
Well,
work.
look at Hearthstone. Remember, you won 3 games and you got 5 fucking gold or something. They're like, what was it? You got nothing. And then afterwards, they were like, okay, we realized the gold progression is a little low. This is why they have a technical alpha and a beta so that they can measure that stuff. So my guess is that once it's all done, they're going to do exactly the same thing. They're going to do a wipe. Maybe they do 2 wipes, and then they do their wipe to announce that we're not going to wipe again, so that people can spend, their money.
I don't know if they would ever. I don't even know if you need to do a wipe. I think the characters just persist. Like you've bought this character, and I think you have him for the rest of the game.
Well, I think that no, that's how it will be. But I mean, like
Yeah.
Hearthstone. Remember, like you
Oh,
bought
yeah, yeah.
cards and then they
Right.
wiped, but you got to basically buy those cards again. So I think
Yeah.
in between those times, they've got to evaluate: do we need to give people a little bit more money? Do we give them money for every game they win or play or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's where it's where they really need to look at it.
Can I just say something, Milgauss? Like, let me just like make it. Dude, I'm not. I didn't buy everything. I'm not. He's calling me out because he said just because YouTubers and like TV and you and spend a lot of money doesn't mean that everyone can spend it like you guys. Like that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that based off of what I see and what I know, people, how much they spent on League of Legends, how much they've spent on Hearthstone. I'm not talking about people like me, or I'm talking about the people I talk to, the guys that come into chat that are like, yeah, I've spent $40 on Hearthstone. Like, yeah, I've got every fucking champion in League of Legends. Like, people spend money on these games. Like, all I'm saying is that this game is good enough that people will spend money on it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, to get off that, I do want to bring in the fact like for an alpha, I don't really know if that's just for an alpha, this, I guess the better way to say it, for an alpha, this seems incredibly polished. Like in-game animations, the way it looks, the way every level is done. I think I've never crashed. I know of one person that's crashed. They had a crash last night, but um, like for an alpha, it breathes rather Blizzard game, and it's very well done. Just from a technical standpoint, like everything in game runs smoothly. I never dip below 60 FPS with everything maxed out. Um, the heroes look fantastic, as well as the skins. Like most of the skins in most of the games, I really feel like it's just like a color redesign with a slight model variance. These are like full on different looking characters that look awesome. They're really, really well done. So I think that's a really cool aspect. They do a really good job honoring like the aesthetics of all of these different characters from all these different IPs. Um, and so if you're worried about that, don't be. They really nailed that. I think through the game. What do you think?
I think they nail it hugely. I mean, even in the individual maps, how they bring in elements and components from every single game and how it all works together. You know, like it is the discovery of the game is interesting as you're like, what the fuck is that swarm host locust doing down going, the middle of the lane? And why are there two banshees coming out and attacking all these people? Like, where is this stuff coming from? It's awesome to see it all work together. And I like that Blizzard's approach has kind of been somewhat comedic towards it. Like even in the cutscene as you open and you're going through training, like Raynor is making jokes about what the hell am I doing here? And when he dies, he's like, wait a second, I just died. What's going on? And he explains to him in this world, like they incorporated that into their own universes, and that's kind of sweet. So, I mean, I guess if anyone is going to be able to handle the lore and how it all fits together perfectly, it's probably going to be Blizzard, even when all of their universes are so grossly different. But they come together quite nicely. I've enjoyed all the characters that I've played. I tend to there's four roles. There's assassin, support, specialist, and then like tank. Yeah, basically.
And a lot of those, I mean, those are most heroes go outside of those archetypes and blend into others as well. So I think they just put those in there for the sake of being able to make sure that people understand that this class or this hero plays differently. But like Pudge, for example, is labeled as a tank, but he's also like an assassin at the same time because you can do a shit ton of damage at any given time and like pull someone across the map. Um, yeah.
I would say everyone can be like you scale. Everyone scales well in this game.
Right. Well, everyone scales at the same time as well.
Right.
This is another interesting thing that we didn't really get to, but
No, well, I mean, let's just touch on it really quickly because other people are like, well, what makes this, different than the other games out there? When I first heard the whole concept of everyone is a team level and that's how it all works, at first you're just kind of like, I don't get it. Like, where is the individual play come into all this? And it's certainly there. I think that this is something that I realize is almost a necessity and works quite well with the whole point that, like, suddenly the objectives become that much more important because you are that team dynamic that has to work together. And so I don't know if that would work, if the objectives would have the same weight on everything else in the game if it wasn't that way. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah, it does. I think I agree. I think I agree with it. Um, I guess what is your one complaint about the game? Because we're doing a lot of circle jerking with it. What's your one complaint?
I mean, obviously, in an alpha form, I feel like there's a lot of information I would like to access much better on my screen. For example, like, when you start off and as you level up throughout the game, it will be like, pick a trait, choose a level up or something like that. And it will be like, hey, this will give you 2 damage every level. And so it's like, oh, that's neat. Well, where the fuck does it even show my damage? Well, you got to go down to the traits tab down here and click it, and then it takes up half of the screen. So, I mean, like, again, this is alpha, so I feel like this stuff will change. I'll be able to hover over my portrait and be able to see my attack speed and my attack damage rather quickly. I I guess in terms of understanding how the teams work together, I I think I'm just not quite sure the dynamic of characters fully yet in Heroes of the Storm. Like, I don't know what happens if you're just like, yo, let's all choose 5 tanks and just see what happens. Because if we just like survive until 25, will that be, they're so hard to kill so you can power through? I think we found out that a team full of assassins doesn't really work right. So I guess like my lack of comfort level knowing that, it's really hard to gauge, like even if another team is doing something right or if it's just a matter of a team composition that we have. So that's partially just because the game's new, and I know you're like, well, how is that even a fucking complaint, Wheat? But it's hard to, I guess, put into words a little bit. What else? I think range is king in that game, especially at early level.
Most of the melee heroes have some sort of like jump in ability from what
Yeah.
I've seen. So I do agree with you. Like ranged is very strong. I think assassins in general are very strong. Um, when I was playing with TB earlier, we were running 3 assassin, 1 tank, 1 support, and it seemed to do pretty well.
Well, especially if your assassins are together.
Well,
You
yeah,
know.
I mean, team play is everything. Is in most MOBAs. Like if you're fighting a 4v5, most of the time you're going to lose. Um, I think it really comes down to like in a balanced fight, that's where you'll get the best fights. But I mean, that's just MOBA. That's how those games work, right? Um, but I'm basing all of this off of less than 5 hours of play.
Of
So
course, and that's why it's hard to even say, well, it's a complaint. I mean, you want another complaint? Fucking people that don't know how to play MOBAs, man. Like I'm.
well, it's not even that. It's people that do know how to play MOBAs, but they don't know how to play Heroes of Storm, and they don't focus on objectives.
Yeah.
That's the most annoying thing for me is people that get into the game and stay in mid lane and never do anything but sit there and fight the AI. Like the roles in this game are very, very different from what a lot of people know to be in MOBA games. Whereas like a roamer, someone that actually does not ever sit in a lane at all and just constantly moves around, is 100% a role in this game for
Right.
probably an assassin character.
Maybe for the first couple levels, but even then.
No, I would say like right from the start, the entire game, like having someone roam the map is so good because you only need one person in a lane to get XP for that lane for your team. And so if you have 3 people in a lane and 2 people roaming constantly, like
Right.
I think you can do a pretty good amount of uh, damage against the other team doing that. But what do I know? Again, 5 hours worth of play. I'm just kind of hypothesizing at this point.
I guess a lot of people are. So what about you? What are your complaints?
I think the one complaint really comes down to just like the menus, and I think they'll nail that later on. Right now, they put a lot of placeholder stuff. Something to the effect of like when I'm queuing for a match, I have to sit here and stare at the same screen. I can't browse the store. I can't look at something else or do other things within the game. I just sit there and wait. I think that's a little bit annoying. I'd rather be looking at the store, perhaps looking at purchases or looking at trades, perhaps thinking how I want to play this character, et cetera, et cetera. Because all the other MOBAs do that. You can queue and do whatever else you want. I think that'll just come with time.
I
That
think
was
it will too.
confirmed saying that'll come with time last night on the stream. Um, I I wish you could skip the tutorial as well.
Yeah, I
I,
was thinking about that last night after you were mentioning it, and I was saying to myself, you know what? They're never going to let you do that because they make XP and leveling a part of that. And I guess for
yeah,
bringing new players in, it's absolutely necessary. And so as painful as it is, because it's the same thing in Hearthstone, dude. It's like,
yeah,
okay, you know what? I played 1,000 games during beta. Don't make me do this. But
yeah.
unfortunately, I don't know. Maybe they're going to be smart and just be like auto reward the XP and do it. But you're right. That can be as much of a deterrent as it can be for people trying to get into the game quickly and efficiently. So
Yep.
we'll see.
Oh, last thing. What level are you? Did you hit 8 yet?
Yes, I. Oh yes, and that really like automatically changes everything.
It changes the game completely, yeah,
Yeah.
because each time you level up, you have two choices for a total of four instead of two choices all the way leading up to that. And a lot of those choices actually are huge. Like one of them I found is called barter. And when you get 40 creep kills, you don't have to get the last hits. You just have to be near the creeps when they're killed. You can go and immediately kill any non-golem minion camps with just a click of a button.
Nice. Yeah,
So that's pretty nuts.
yesterday we had the fortunate chance to play against Blizzard employees who, were all 11, 12. And there were some things happening that like I just didn't quite understand. But now that I've seen the open traits, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's where that shit came from. So,
Yeah.
just I wouldn't say it's like you just can't play against those players, but understand that you reach your full potential when you do hit like 12. There's definitely room for growth in the game, and I haven't even seen it all because I understand when you get higher, then you can actually like individually level up each character as you play them.
Yeah, there are some sort of there is some sort of XP tied to the characters, I think.
Right.
I know there's quests tied to the characters, and that's to unlock color variants. I don't know what else. I will probably try to hit level 12 today, but I think it's going to be quite a grind because
I
it's
think
already
it'd
quite a
be hard. Yeah, but
yeah.
well, why don't we take a break? Because of things going on, we might just close the show out like 5-10 minutes early. But we could open up the phones right away if anyone has questions about Heroes. I'd love to talk about it, what they think. I mean, a lot of people have opinions based off of what they've seen, but maybe we can talk a little bit about that. Titanfall, Dark Souls, whatever. If there's any news items we want to bring up, we'll do that as well. So, guys, the first hour of 8 Bits is over, but we will be returning in just a moment. Don't go away. We'll be right back.